Hi everybody, welcome to All Games New and Old. I'm David Rodriguez.
And I'm Hillary Rodriguez.
And today we're doing kind of a special episode. It is a top 10 followed by a top or bottom 5. We're doing the top 10 games of Board Game Geek's top 100 games that we want to play and top 5, or again, bottom 5, that we don't want to play. And I'm blatantly ripping this idea off from the Board Game Hot Takes podcast. With their permission, of course. I reached out, they said that was totally cool. That's a great podcast, by the way. You should check it out because they play a game and then immediately give their response, and somehow it's super in-depth and amazing. So definitely listen to their podcast. It's phenomenal, but we're going to do it our way, which will hopefully also be phenomenal.
We'll see.
We'll enjoy it. So, you know, if you don't, that's your problem. For me, the way I went about it is I, of course, looked over the list. I kind of had to, I had to really narrow down the ones I wanted to play because obviously there's a lot of games that I've heard a ton about on there. And then the list for ones I didn't want to play was a lot smaller, but I managed to do that. And I just kind of put them in the order from how much I want to play them. So the number one is the one that I really most want to play, but all these, of course, are, I have a lot of desire to get to the table at some point. Some of these games we may have, but we haven't played yet. So that's a thing, but, you know, because shelf of shame, it's a big issue. So anyway, that's more or less how I went about my list.
Yeah, I approached my list a little bit differently since I don't really have time to listen to a bunch of podcasts, and I don't have a lot of time to learn about these games until he gets them and pulls them out and goes, we're playing this. So for me, it was more, I took the approach as I'm going into a game store and I'm seeing all these games on a shelf. Which ones am I most likely to pick up and look at and see if I want to play it? So I'm sure there's a lot of games on that list that I actually would really enjoy and really want to play, but maybe the artwork on the box didn't really entice me to pick up the box. So for the games I wanted to play, I kind of put them in a list of the ones that sounded the most interesting to me or at least interesting to most interesting. My 5 games I don't want to play, I don't really know enough about them to really put them in any kind of list, so.
Yeah, it's probably worth noting that, you know, even though I have listened to a lot of stuff, I'm not going to know tons about the mechanics. So by all means, if I start spouting off about something on mechanic and I'm wrong, let me know, because it may alter my opinion one way or the other. So, but yeah, we'll tell you for the most part why we do or don't want to play these. So, all right, so number 10. So my number 10 for this list is a game that we have and actually got fairly recently. It is Eldritch Horror from the Arkham Files series from Fantasy Flight. It's a lot like Arkham Horror, except for instead of wandering around a town trying to deal with the mystery, you're actually kind of doing more globe-spanning, travel and whatnot. And I resisted getting this a long time because Arkham Horror is my number 1 game, and a lot of people like this one better, and I was afraid it would replace it, even though maybe I'll like it better, and so that's fine. I have the weird thing with this. I don't know why it is. It comes up in a few instances. Yeah. I don't want a game I like to be replaced by a game that might be better. It's real strange. I can't explain that. But I do want to play it. I feel like I'm missing this big, there's this big hole in my Arkham game knowledge, and I feel like if I don't at least play this, what right do I have to talk? You know what? I have all the right to talk about Arkham, but I feel more, I have a better ground to stand on if I play this. And I'm sure I will enjoy this game. I would be amazed if I didn't. So Eldritch Horror is my number 10. These are the games we want to play, by the way, in case we didn't say. All
right. My number 10 that I want to play is Feast for Odin. It's a Viking game, and you're trying to build resources and invade towns, and you're managing everything, and kind of seems like it's a strategic game that sounds interesting to me.
That almost made my list. It was genuinely, I don't remember exactly how far it was from 10, but it was right up there. Okay, my number 9 is Too Many Bones. This is a real big campaign game that has poker chip like things as a lot of the components. So I guess the box is sturdy and heavy as heck. Your characters can advance and whatnot. And the only reason I kind of have resisted this, well, there's 2 reasons. One, not cheap. Definitely not cheap. Also, the characters you play look like like, I don't know, like goblins mixed with like some kind of fairy. They're real weird looking, so they're not like appealing to me as far as character design things go to play as, but gosh darn it, I keep hearing so much about this and people absolutely love it. I'm a little worried that, you know, it's the kind of game that's like a lifestyle game, so I don't know how much I can actually get deep into it, so that's also a thing with that, but yeah, I can't help it. I do want to play this game. I don't know that I'll ever actually end up owning it because of all the things that I've said, but I would sure love to give this game a try at some point. So that's my number 9, Too Many Bones.
My number 9 is Seven Wonders. It's a competitive kind of deck building game, and I just like the theme is really, like, I'm really interested in that type of theme, so.
Yeah, that's one of these like modern classics really that I have not even played. And the only reason I haven't is because I guess like there's a 2-player automaton thing that people don't tend to like, so I'm like, okay, well we have to find other people we can play this with, but I'd be all for trying Seven Wonders sometime. So, okay, number 8. My number 8. This is actually kind of a risky one in a sense for me. Like, it's risky in the sense that if I spent money on it, I'm not sure how it would go. That is Brass Birmingham. It is a heavy economic game. It's oh boy, it's like even like a theme that I don't. It's very industrial seeming, which I usually shy away from as a theme. It almost always immediately turns me off. But I just keep hearing people talk about how good this is and whatnot. So, like, we don't have a lot of, or maybe any real heavy economic games in our collection. And because this one is one that everyone talks about, and because I do want to kind of fill in some of these gaps of games that maybe I, you know, am not too familiar with, or types I'm not familiar with, you know, it seems like maybe the one to go with. And I think I will either love it or despise it. I think it's just going to go one way or the other, but I feel like I do need to try it at some point. So that's my number 8, Brass Birmingham.
My number 8 is Everdale. It's a competitive worker placement kind of deck builder game a little bit. And the artwork seems really cute, and so it seems like it would be kind of fun, and we might even be able to get our 11-year-old to play it. Yeah,
she'd probably at least dig the aesthetic for sure. It's a lot of people love that game. It's a pretty one too. Okay, number 7. My number 7 is Kanban EV. This is a game by Vito Lacerda, so already I'm getting a headache trying to think about learning and teaching the rules for that, even though I haven't started. But you're like a car manufacturing company, and I don't know if you're trying to be the most efficient or sell the most cars. I don't know actually what the end goal is. But it sounds really interesting, and the most interesting thing to me, and you'd think that this would make me absolutely run screaming in the other direction, because I feel like this is just my life and like the less good parts of it. There's a mechanic where there is a supervisor walking around and like making sure you're doing good, and if you're not, I don't know, you get in trouble. I don't know what happens exactly, but you have to be doing good. And I think there's ways to play where she could be meaner or nicer. I don't know, but I just want to see that in a game. I think that's really fascinating, because then, like, you know, I don't know why I want this, because it's literally, this is like half my life. Nonetheless, I'm very curious about it, and it's supposed to be very good, but the complexity of that game, I don't know if it's more or less so than the Gallerist, which is the one Lacerda game we have, but that one's already pretty complicated. But I do want to try it. I keep being drawn to it. Every time I see it somewhere, I'm like, that could be cool. I don't know. So maybe someday we will see. Kanban Eevee is my number 7.
My number 7 is Robinson Crusoe Adventures of the Cursed Island. It sounds like a really interesting concept. Like, you're shipwrecked on this island, and it's a co-op game. You have to, you know, build shelters. You also have to find a way to feed yourselves. You know, there's animals that you have to protect yourself from. There's also, could be pirate treasure and something with a volcano. And there's a lot of different ways that you can go about playing it and trying to win the game. And so that sounds really interesting. And also sounds like it has the potential to have a lot of replayability, since there's so many different directions you can go with.
Yes, indeed. And the good news is, at some point, we have a very fancy special edition of that coming our way. So, I don't know exactly when it's happening, but that is coming. So, but I want to try that too. It's supposed to be super hard. but that's okay. As long as I know that going in, I don't mind those super hard ones, so that's fine.
Especially when it's co-op.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we can suffer and like not manage to like rub two sticks together to create a fire and being able to cook food together. So, isn't that romantic? Okay. My number 6 is Anachrony. This is a worker placement game from Mind Clash Games, which have a tendency to also, from what I understand, be fairly complicated, but pretty much everyone I know who's played this loves it. My friend Riley Stock, who is the host of the Board Game Community Show, I think as soon as he played this, it kind of catapulted up to being his #1 game. It has some kind of weird, crazy time travel mechanism. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but it sounds fascinating overall. I think the basic retail version you can get doesn't have all the minis maybe, but the minis are supposed to be stellar, so I don't know. The problem is that it's not in print very often, it seems like. So I don't know when I'll get to play that, but I definitely would like to try. If I could go back in time and like back it when it was on Kickstarter, I would do it. But I really want to give this one a shot because I think it's definitely a very unique theme from any game that we have. It's got worker placement, which I like. You know, I think as long as we could push through the learning of it, I think it could be a really cool one for us. So that is my number 6, Anachrony.
My number 6 is Clank Legacy. We have the original Clank, the deck building game, and you know, it's a lot of fun. I know it's one of your like top. Did it make it in your top 10? I know it was,
I don't know. It's up pretty high, though.
I know it was up pretty high on your top 50 list. So. So I'm kind of curious how they expand it out to into being a legacy game. And if I remember correctly, they kind of it's almost more of a co-op with it being
it might be.
legacy.
I'm not really sure, but it's when every time someone talks about legacies, they don't want to say too much, so it's kind of tough. But yeah, I'd be down to play that too. I hear a lot of people say that's like the best legacy game, so I'd be interested in that too. Okay. My number 5 is Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth, which we have. It's often described as the Lord of the Rings version of Mansions of Madness, although it is a bit different. I know, like, there's the combat mechanic is all card-based, and it looks like a really interesting mechanic. The only thing that's kind of stopped me from getting it before or playing it before is that it's very much a campaign-based game, but it just sounds fantastic. I think everyone who plays it seems to like really rave about it, and for some reason I've been just really in the mood to play Lord of the Rings stuff lately. I have no idea what's come over me. Like suddenly I'm like, oh, Gimli or whatever. But yeah, I definitely want to try that out. I think it could be really cool. So yeah, I gotta punch out a lot of map tiles and stuff, and that's, oh god. But nonetheless, we have it, so I'm sure we will play it. That's my number 5, Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth.
Right. My number 5 is Mercs versus Minions. That one sounded really interesting. It's a co-op game, and you're basically a bunch of villagers controlling these different mechs, trying to fight back minions that are trying to take over your lands, and it just it has some cool models in it, and just like the theme kind of interests me, and it's a co-op game, so just kind of all together it sounded really interesting.
Yeah, I keep hoping the company that makes that will reprint it again, because they're actually like a video game company, and then so they decided to do this just kind of for fun, and so what's awesome is it's like they make all their money off League of Legends, I think. And so it's like they were able to sell this thing that has tons of stuff for way cheaper than it should be. Yeah. Because they're like, we're making millions on League of Legends, so whatever. But yeah, I definitely would like to try that one too. It's awesome looking. Number 4. So my number 4 is Star Wars Rebellion. This is another one that we have. I was able to find it secondhand here locally from someone. And it's often described as Star Wars in a box. Someone takes control of the Empire. The other side takes control of the rebels who are trying to hide their base. The Empire starts out way more powerful, but they can't win unless they find that base, and the rebels kind of build up their power as they go. And of course, because it is a game, things can happen very, very differently. Like, you know, like it may be like Leia who becomes like the main like Jedi, and all, you know, all kinds of stuff, different stuff could happen. And it just sounds really cinematic and cool and a different way to experience Star Wars, so I really want to try that out. It's a bit of a longer game, I think, I'm pretty sure, but could be an amazing one. So that is my number 4, Star Wars Rebellion.
My number 4 is Lord of the Rings Journey in Middle-earth. You know, basically everything that you covered, and I like Lord of the Rings. It's a co-op game. I'm curious how the card mechanism of it is going to work out, so it's definitely one that I want to check out.
Right on. Okay, number 3. My number 3, another one we have, Pandemic Legacy Season 1. So, Pandemic is one of the games that really started us off on this journey, one of the early ones, and everyone raves about the Legacy one, so that's cool. I'm really curious to see how that game kind of evolves over time. I know there's like a cool storyline involved. I think all the Pandemic Legacy games are in that top 100, so I almost put in Pandemic Legacy Season 0 as well, because for some reason that one like super intrigues me too, but I want to try this one first because it's going to be more familiar, well, and we have it. It's going to be more familiar to us because it is more like original Pandemic, and but I'm excited to give that a shot. I feel like I've been hearing about it for years, and I just, we finally made the plunge and got it recently, and so got to get that to the table, and then we can try to review it and not say much about it. It's going to be tough, so, but I'm excited to try it. Yeah,
I have a feeling the rest of my list is going to be kind of crossovers here.
Yeah, might be.
My number 3 is Eldritch Horror. It's an Arkham Horror game that we don't have, or that we haven't played, so that automatically draws me in, and I want to try it out. So
right on. We will do that sometime. My number 2 is Kingdom Death Monster. Boy, there's some barriers to me playing this one. It's expensive. It's got a lot of models, especially if you start getting into expansions and whatnot too. Very expensive, but it's super intriguing to me because, again, this is another, talk about Too Many Bones being a lifestyle game. Like, this one sounds insane. So as I understand it, you start after people just have like loincloths to their name and almost nothing else, and you're going to try to fight. Like, it's basically like you're going up against different bosses, and so you start off against this white lion, and he will almost definitely destroy you. But as you go, and you get like a few more little tools to your name, eventually you can fight that, and that'll give you like a weapon. And you're also, in addition to going and fighting these monsters, you're also trying to build your society, so you can, make choices if you're going to be like a democracy or like a dictatorship kind of thing. It's just like keep building and building and choosing which way you go and dealing with tougher and tougher creatures. But it sounds amazing, but high cost, big time sink. Very, very, very explicit art, and some of the miniatures too, in lots of ways. That's going to be a hard one for me. But that being said, I would love to try Kingdom Death Monster because it just looks like such a over-the-top kind of insane experience that I feel like I'll be missing out if I never ever try it. So.
My number 2 is Pandemic Legacy Season 1. I just kind of lumped in all the Pandemic Legacy games together rather than having a few of them on my list. So, Pandemic was our kind of gateway game. So, to try a Legacy, if I'm going to try a Legacy, that's probably the one that I want to start with. So,
for sure. All right, my number 1, the game on the BGG Top 10 that I most want to play is Eclipse Second Dawn for the Galaxy, which might be heading our way at some point. But I recently had a chance to finally play Twilight Imperium, and I played it with all the expansions at the full player count, and it took 15.5 hours. Eclipse is another Space 4X game, but, and I'm just talking about what you see on the box, its maximum time is like a half hour less than Twilight Imperium's minimum time. So, I think you can actually play that reasonably. Like, you could probably play this way more often than I could ever even think to play Twilight Imperium. And it can play 2 players, which is great. And hopefully gets some of the same kind of feeling behind it. It just looks gorgeous. It looks cool. I want that feel, but I want to also do other things in my day sometimes. And I'm never going to buy Twilight Imperium 4 because I will just never get my copy to the table. So, Eclipse Second Dawn for the Galaxy looks amazing. Lots of really cool little models in it as well. And yeah, I want that kind of game, and that game seems like a much, much more reasonable way to get that feeling than Twilight Imperium could ever be. So that's my number 1, Eclipse Second Dawn for the Galaxy.
My number 1 is going to be Gloomhaven. We have Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion, and I really enjoy that game a lot, so I really want to get to the bigger version of it.
I almost had that. The only reason I didn't put that on my list is like, well, I kind of know how it plays because we played Jaws of the Lion, so maybe I won't include it. But if I had chosen to include it, it would have been, I don't know exactly, it would have been really high on my list, actually, because I do really want to play it. But I was like, well, I figured you would talk about it for one, so I'm like, well, I'll just leave that off of mine, and, you know, I can kind of make reasons for that. Yeah. So, anyway, all right. So those are the top 10 games that we want to play from BGG's Top 100. Now we're getting into controversy territory, because it's the 5 that we don't want to play. And, you know, it's controversial because obviously all these games on this list are games that a lot of people really love. I mean, people can argue about the validity of what the Top 100 on BGG even means. I mean, it's going to skew like more complicated because that's the people who are hanging on BGG and bothering to do rankings, but it's still, you know, it's a reasonable way to get your finger on the pulse of what people are interested in and liking, so it's still good. And I think it's worth saying, you know, at least for myself, I would happily, honestly, play any of these games. I would give any of them a shot because I know I can be very wrong about a game based on just hearing some stuff about it. There could be a lot of things to it that would really engage me that I'd really like, that I just maybe not be seeing from the outside. But these are games that I'm very not likely to go and purchase. I would have to be kind of like finagled, maybe begged or bribed into playing these games. So again, my list is like, you know, the number 1 is the one that I actually least want to play on there, but that's kind of how I did mine. What about you?
Yeah, for me, it's like you know, a lot of the games on the Top 100 are games that I haven't really heard of before, so it's kind of hard for me. And then when I'm looking at their website, it's hard for me to get a feel of like how the game plays, or even like some of the core mechanics of it, because they use some different terminology than what I'm used to using for board games. So so for me, I just kind of, you know, it was a mix. Again, kind of went back to that. I'm walking into a game store scenario. You know, does this game even look interesting to me? And then I just kind of read the quick description that they had on the website, and, you know, and most of the time it was just the theme didn't really sound that interesting to me.
Yeah, for sure. So, yes, you ready to make some enemies? Don't get mad. I will play these games if you want. Okay. Well, I mean, you have to make us. But
I would say make, but we're not going to buy them.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not. Okay. So, my number 5. I almost feel like I should duck after saying this. Honest to God. Like, this is the one that I feel like almost I most have to, like, brace myself for whatever kind of input is going to come my way. The number 5 game I don't want to play is Dune Imperium. It combines 2 of my favorite mechanics. Worker placement and deck building. But it's also got Dune. And my dislike of Dune is irrational because I've never read Dune and I've never watched Dune. And I do want to watch the movie, but only so I can be like, okay, fine, I watched it. Like, I just want to, like, I might like it. I hope I would. But every time I see anything Dune, I'm like, oh boy, it's a desert. Look at that worm. It's like nothing that makes me feel excited about science fiction at all. Like, it's like you took sci-fi and you're like, what can we do to make this as drab as humanly possible? I just, not having experienced it, and I know this is, you know, not the best way to think about it, I see Doom and I am just not Dune. Excuse me, not Doom, Dune. And I'm just not excited. And we already have Lost Ruins of Arnak, which similarly combines those 2 things, which has a more Indiana Jones feel, which is a much, much cooler kind of theme for me. So, yeah, I'm sorry, Dune Imperium. I just don't, I will play you, and I probably will even enjoy it if I do, but I just don't want to.
Right. My number 5 was Keyflower. It's, from what I kind of saw, it's a little bit worker placement, but also like building bidding with your work replacement, and like bidding as a game mechanic isn't that interesting to me. So
yeah, I think it's tough. I think it has to be done just right, and maybe that one does it great. I don't know, but that also wouldn't make me more excited to play it necessarily. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I didn't say at the top, but I'm very curious if we have crossover here with like our don't likes to someone else's likes. That'll be interesting. So
yeah, we don't know each other's.
Yeah,
lists,
I don't know what she's done, so I don't know what you did. All right, my number 4 is Puerto Rico. This is a all-time classic. It was at number 1 on the BGG list forever. I don't even know the mechanisms other than I think it might have been the one that started the like follow mechanism where somebody does an action, like the other people get to do it as well, which is a cool mechanism. I don't doubt that this is a good game. Like I don't, like I'm not excited by the theme, but I wouldn't be against it, except it's a very colonizer kind of theme. And I'm just like, I just think that kind of feels icky at this point. I've heard they're going to re-release it and do something about that somehow, which would be interesting because they're trying to keep it that theme. So I don't know I don't know if they're going to avoid it or I don't know what they're going to do. Either way, I just find it a little bit like something I'm just not trying to play. I would, and no, I don't think it makes anyone a bad person for enjoying it, but I'm just trying to avoid the whole colonization as a theme thing for the most part, just because it's usually not great. So that's my number 4, Puerto Rico.
My number 4 is Chain Food.
Food chain magnate?
Yeah, magnate. And it's just the theme I'm not interested in the theme at all, really. So, like the I want to say concept, but the concept and theme are kind of the same. The mechanics of it seem kind of interesting, but like just the thing kind of just really doesn't do anything for me, so.
Yeah. Okay, my number 3 is Twilight Struggle. This is a game about the Cold War, which is an interesting enough theme, I think. But what has really put me off of this game, despite everyone raving about it who plays it, is that it's a game where if you don't know what cards are in the game, you can get really blindsided and it could just screw up your whole game. Which is okay, but that means you kind of have to play with someone at an equal level of skill in the game as you, or knowledge of the game as you. Otherwise, it just sounds like hell for everyone involved. People love it. People love it. It's great. I just... it just doesn't excite me in any way. I wish I could... I don't know. Again, I would try it. But I don't know who I would try it with, because if someone else was, because I don't think you're going to look around by it. If anyone else is going to show me, they've probably played it, so they know the cards, and I don't. I don't know if they're going to play this card that's going to completely, nullify everything I've worked to. I just don't. I don't dig that. So, Twilight Struggle, that's my number 3. Probably not going to play it.
My number 3 is Nemesis. Yeah, I'm not a huge sci-fi person. Like, there's some sci-fis I like, but in general I don't consider myself a sci-fi person, and I'm even less of a horror person, so having a game that's based off of sci-fi horror just does not appeal to me.
Fair enough, fair enough. My number 2 is Power Grid. This, again, very highly thought of game. I remember early on when we were in a game store trying to find games, like the person there was desperately trying to convince us to buy that one. And I have no doubt that it's mechanically great, but damn, that theme bores me. I don't want to set up power grids for a city and trying to make sure everybody has power, and I just, it's these very like kind of industrial themes like rarely excite me. And I just look at the cover, and that doesn't look exciting either, and just, I don't know. I'm sure it plays amazing, but the theme is just so dull to me. I just can't, even just like a brown Euro game where you're like, I'm building my medieval city, that's way cooler to me than being like, let me get electricity over there. I just don't care. That's so boring to me. I just don't. I don't want to play Power Grid. That's my number 2, Power Grid.
So my number 2 is our first crossover with Good and Bad.
Oh boy, I'm excited. I'm legit excited about this. I was gonna actually be disappointed if there was like nothing. I was gonna be like, oh man, okay, wait, that's fine.
So there was a few of these games on the list, so I just kind of combined them all into one.
Oh, wow.
So I went with the first one, and that's the Brass Bellingham.
Birmingham, yeah.
Birmingham, yeah. Just the theme doesn't really interest me, and then like the little bit that I could gather from the game mechanics aren't really something that I'm drawn to either. So you know, it's a game that, you know, I would try, but it just, you know, definitely not a game that I'm gonna pick up.
Yeah, upon reflection, probably the only reason it was able to make it onto the list of top 10s that I might play is because there is either a beer mechanic or resource, and I like beer. All right, like that's kind of cool. I could be down with like doing something with beer in a game. And probably if it didn't have that, it might not have made it to my not want to play at all, but it probably would have been just somewhere in the middle where I'm like, like whatever. But anyway, I totally get that. Actually, I'm not shocked that you picked that one. I'm not even sure if I want to play. I feel like I should. So anyway. All right. This is number 1 of the games that we desperately don't want to play. My number 1 is a crossover with your bads, and that is Food Chain Magnate. I actually like the theme. I think, you know, creating your own diner and being competitive like that, I think that's kind of interesting. But it looks like an early prototype. It's not a good looking game, but okay. The thing that bothers me is the designer whose name I'm blanking on. I believe I heard on a podcast that he said something to the effect of, if you can't lose a game on the first turn, what's the point? I hate that viewpoint. No offense to the designer. Some people love it. Fantastic. I hate that. Especially because this is not a short game. I don't know how long it plays, but I'm going to say at least 2 hours. If the game is 15 minutes, okay. Okay that you botched yourself early and you're not going to win. Fine. If a game is like any more than that, no. That's horrible. That is horrible to me. Okay, I feel like I'm insulting the designer, and I'm really not, because that is how he likes games. That's great. It feels like laziness of a game, like the guy they're like, oh, this isn't good. You could lose really early, and they're just like, forget it. We don't want to do it anymore. That's how it feels to me if a game is like that. Because why would you want to make it that painful for other people at the table? Like, I thought we learned this lesson with Monopoly. Like, no, you don't have a game that you can obviously be losing and probably no chance of getting back early on and still have hours to go. Terrible. That's terrible. Because, like, yeah, I get it. You play with people of your own skill level. How am I going to do that? Like, I like to introduce games to people. I like to, like, bring games that I like and show new people. So I'm going to show them and then, like, we're just going to crush them? Just because, like that? Like, are they going to want to play that game anymore? Probably not. So what's my option? I have to find a group of people that all want to play this together, starting from the get-go, learning it, and then just keep playing it so we can keep having an interesting game. That is miles of hurdles to jump over for me. And I just hate that viewpoint on game design. I despise that viewpoint on game design. I don't want to do that. Not in a game this long. No. No. For God's sake. Awful. Awful. It will take so much finagling to get me to play this game. I would try it because it is a big one, and I would like to be able to say, yeah, I tried this at some point. Mm-hmm. And maybe I would love it. But I would have to play with other people who are also very new, because otherwise I'm going in not thinking like, oh, this is going to be hard. That's okay. I don't mind going in on a game that has, at least, if I have a glimmer of a chance where I might beat someone, even though I know they're much more skilled than me, if I have a tiny chance, I'm okay with it if I lose badly. But when I go in and it's like, I will be getting crushed this game, and I'm going to be sitting here for 2 hours not being able to get anything done because everyone else knows what to do and I don't, no. Food Chain Magnate, you stay away from me. Someone is going to, if we set up a Patreon, that is such a high level to get me to play that with you. I can't even tell you. You will be buying us a car. That's it. Food Chain Magnate is my number 1. I don't want to play that game.
Alright, my number 1 that I don't want to play is Twilight Struggle. I don't like the theme at all. The gameplay doesn't sound interesting. Just kind of everything about it. It's just not a game for me.
Yeah, and really, honestly, the same problem as Food Chain Magnate, where people who know are almost definitely going to crush people who don't. I don't like that. Okay, so yeah, you can leave hate messages in the comments if you like, or you can reach out to me on Twitter at allgamesnew and old if you want, and tell me why I'm wrong or tell me why I'm right. All that's fantastic. Just be nice about it. It's cool. You know, if you meet me somewhere and I got nothing else to do and you got one of those games that we don't want to play, we'll try it. For Chain Magnate, you owe me a car. But that's, yeah, sure, we can do that. Anyway, I hope this video has been fun for you. If it has, please hit like and subscribe and click the little bell icon so you can know about the next time we put out a video. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you all around the table again at All Games New and Old.
Bye. A Cthulhu Mythos.
If you enjoyed that video, you might also like this one.
Or this one.
Either way, if you could click this button to subscribe so you can see more of our stuff when it comes out.
We'll see you around the table.
Bye.
Bye.